Her son laughed and called her a burden. At her own cookout, in front of everyone. Miriam Chase, retired principal and mother of two, didn't argue. She just served dessert, and the letter disinheriting him forever. By nightfall, his name vanished from her estate, her accounts, and her future. He brought mockery to her table. She answered with legal silence. Before we begin, may I ask where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The smoke from the grill curled upward into a July sky already hazy with humidity and the scent of lighter fluid. From the sidewalk, Miriam Chase paused beside the rose hedge. She'd planted herself 34 years. Ago and Darren still had scraped knees, and the decency to call her mom instead of her. The laughter spilling over the backyard fence didn't falter when she opened the side gate. No one looked up. The yard was staged for a scene she hadn't been invited to, but was clearly meant to witnessables draped in red-checkered cloths, folding chairs forming an uneven semicircle around the grill. Darren was stationed behind it, beer in hand, apron on. Lisa stood by the side table, arranging store-bought buns as if they were precious cargo. The music playing was too loud, too polished clearly from Emma's playlist, though Emma herself sat stiffly near the edge, thumbing her phone with the intensity of someone trying to disappear. Miriam stepped through the grass in low, deliberate strides. No walker, no limp, just steady resolve. Lisa saw her first. "Oh," she said, as if startled by her existence. "You made it." Miriam gave a tight-lipped smile and said nothing. Lisa grabbed a plate from the stack behind Hera, thin, floral-printed paper plate that bent under its own weight, and handed it over with no utensils. "There you go," she said brightly. "Let me know if you need help cutting." Before Miriam could respond, Darren called out from behind the grill, "Don't serve Herschel, just Drool again." The laughter that followed wasn't uproarious, but it was real sharp-edged and high-pitched, the kind of laughter people use when they know they're being cruel and hope the noise will hide it. Miriam didn't flinch. She didn't look at Darren, didn't throw the plate back or storm away. She simply held the empty paper dish in her hand like an artifact from a culture she no longer recognized. Emma was the first to move. She stood abruptly, knocking over a solo cup, and disappeared into the house. A few seconds later, she returned with a real plata ceramic, white with a navy romande, a set of silverware wrapped in a cloth napkin. "Here," she said quietly, placing it into Miriam's hands like something sacred. Miriam met her granddaughter's eyes. There it was, that flicker, the one that had survived the bloodline. "Thank you," Miriam said, and her voice, though soft, sliced the air clean. The music dropped for a second as someone fiddled with the volume. The silence exposed the awkward shuffle of feet and the clink of beer bottles. Darren looked up but said nothing. Lisa busied herself with mustard. Across the street, Paula Nguyen stood on her front porch, arms folded over her lavender housecoat. She didn't wave. She didn't call out. But her chin lifted in Miriam's direction, the nod of someone who'd known exactly what it took for her friend to walk through that gate, to stand in that yard, to hold that plate and not hurl it back like a frisbee. Miriam sat at the far end of the table, just past the center of attention. She ate slowly, deliberately. Every bite cut herself. She didn't spill a drop, didn't tremble. Lisa said something about pool reservations and mimosa mixes. Darren burned a bratwurst and cursed under his breath. Miriam sat quiet. She wasn't here to be welcomed. She was here to witness. And with every bite, every stolen glance from Emma, every smug smirk Darren cast toward his wife, she did just that, cataloging, storing, sealing. At the bottom of her plate, under the last slice of grilled zucchini, was a tiny tear in the paperone that would have buckled had she accepted their mockery. But she hadn't. And as she stood up to leave without dessert, without fushy locked eyes with Paula one more time, Paula raised her mug in salute. Miriam stepped through the gate and didn't look back, the ceramic plate still warm in her hands. And in her pocket, the folded corner of her estate binder claws 7-circled, bold and ready. The sun had dipped low by the time Miriam returned to the house through the side door, her empty ceramic plate rinsed and set gently in the drying rack. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, maybe her purse, maybe her keys, maybe just a reason to linger a minute longer in the home she still legally owned but no longer emotionally recognized. The kitchen smelled like sweet relish and overcooked bratwurst. She moved quietly past the fridge, where someone had stuck a note reading, "Don't forget veggie burgers for Aunt Miriam." The ink was smudged. No one had remembered. She was about to open the hallway closet when the voices reached her. Low, close, and careless. From the breakfast nook, just around the corner open floor plan, poor acoustics, no idea they had an audience. "She's basically furniture now," Lisa muttered, laughing softly. "Shows up, sits down, zones out. We should just wheel her in like a centerpiece next time." Darren's voice followed, lazy and smug. "3 more years and everything's ours anyway. Just let her wander. Makes the rest easier." A bottle opened. The clink of ice in a glass. Miriam didn't move. Not at first. She simply stood there, one hand still resting on the pantry door, her breathing so slow it could have passed for stillness. The kitchen clock ticked 4 more seconds before she turned and walked out the back door like she hadn't heard a thing. She didn't slam it. That would have given them credit for mattering. Back home, the familiar click of her laptop booting up filled the silence. She poured herself a cup of Decaphone teaspoon of honey, no milk, and carried it to the kitchen table. She didn't sit until the login screen blinked awake. Passwords. She changed them all. Banking, medical, utilities, 2-factor authentication added to everything with a drop-down. The Chase family folder got a new label. Private eyes only. By the time she logged into her estate dashboard, her fingers moved faster than they had in months. Next, Cynthia. She didn't call. She didn't need to. Just sent a brief clinical message through the encrypted portal they used for legal changes. Need digital lockdown protocol, full encryption, trust files to Cloud Vault only. They've started whispering again. M. Cynthia responded 6 minutes later with a thumbs-up emoji and a line of code to install. Activate the firewall. Sleep well. Miriam smiled. Not because it was over, because it had begun. At 8:43 p.m., Paula arrived without knocking, carrying a foil-covered pan and wearing her trademark cherry-red garden clogs. "I brought lemon bars," she said, setting them on the counter. "For courage." "You always bring courage with powdered sugar on top," Miriam replied, peeling back the foil. "I bring what's needed," Paula said, "and I stay until the lights go off, so don't argue." They ate in the Deno television, just the soft creak of the house settling around them. Paula didn't ask what was said. She didn't have to. Miriam's face told the whole transcript. When the clock struck 10, Paula stood and kissed the top of Miriam's head. "I'll be across the street. Curtain open," she said, tapping her chest twice. "You knock once, I'm there." At 11:17 p.m., Miriam's phone lit up on the nightstand. "Emma, I heard them too. I'm sorry." Miriam stared at the screen for a long moment, then tapped out a reply. She deleted it, then tried again. Deleted that too. In the end, she sent only one sentence. "You noticing is enough for tonight." The phone buzzed again, just a heart emoji in return. Miriam placed the phone screen down, reached for her estate binder, and flipped it open under the lamplight. Clause 7 still circled. She picked up her pen and underlined another line this time. "In cases of dignity breach, irreversible redistribution may be initiated at the grantor's sole discretion." She capped the pen, closed the binder, and whispered into the quiet room. "They think I'm furniture." The clock ticked once. Let's show them what kind of chair I really am. The clinic still smelled like rubbing alcohol and overripe magazines. Miriam sat upright in the gray-cushioned chair, legs crossed, hands folded calmly in her lap. Across from her, Dr. Levasquea, precise woman in tortoiseshell glasses, clicked her pen closed and set it gently on the clipboard. No residual cognitive impairment, no speech irregularities, and frankly, she said with a raised brow, "You're more articulate than most of my interns." Miriam smiled, but only slightly. "I'm not here for ego." Dr. Levesque returned the smile. "Then you're the only one in this building who isn't—" Outside the window, a lawnmower buzzed. Inside, Miriam reached for her tote and stood. "Print me the clearance, signed," she said. "No vague language." Dr. Levesque nodded. Already waiting at the front desk. Back in the car, Miriam adjusted her seatbelt with one hand and opened her phone with the other. A single unread message sat waiting. "Darren, you need anything? We could do groceries this week if it's hard getting around." She stared at it for a beat, then typed back, "I've already removed you from my grocery list." 3 dots flickered, then stopped. She put the phone in the glove compartment and drove home with the windows cracked, letting the wind say all the things she didn't. That evening, the house smelled of stew beef, onions, and garlic simmering low in her grandmother's old Dutch oven. The baguette had been toasted, perfectly, Paula standing guard over the broiler like a general on a war front. Cynthia arrived first, legal satchel slung over her shoulder, and 2 bottles of mineral water tucked under her arm. Emma followed soon after, cheeks pink from biking over, holding a notebook filled with family tree sketches and little arrows marked with question marks. Miriam set the table herself. No paper plates. They ate in the dining room, for once the real one. The oak table with the inlaid border, the mismatched but dignified chairs. She'd wiped every surface down with lemon oil that afternoon. It gleamed like it knew this wasn't just dinner. It was audit. "I brought the folder," Cynthia said once their plates were cleared. "Trust's still solid, but we might want to escalate the clause language if they keep sniffing around." Emma looked up. "What clause?" Miriam gave a quiet smile. "The one they made relevant." Cynthia pulled a pen from her blazer pocket and flipped open the binder Miriam had already placed beside the soup spoons. "I'd recommend tightening the successor lines," she said, "and shifting durable POA away from your son before he thinks to contest." Miriam nodded. "Do it." No hesitation. No need for a second voice. This wasn't a family discussion. It was an operational directive. In the living room, Paula was busy arranging heirlooms on a navy throw blanket she'd spread out like a makeshift studio. Silver lockets, baby shoes, hand-stitched linens, and 1 photo album with cracked leather corners. She held each object carefully, then snapped pictures with Emma's phone. "For documentation," she said, as if that explained everything. It did. Miriam stepped into the room and ran a hand along the edge of the wooden jewelry box Darren had made in 7th grade. He'd burned her initials into the Legionnaire. Almost childlike. She paused, then shut it. Emma looked over from the couch. "You okay?" Miriam nodded, just remembering. They didn't need the rest of the sentence, what it used to mean. After dessert-any drizzled pears with cinnamon, Paula kissed Miriam on the cheek and told her the photos would be uploaded by morning. Cynthia left with a copy of the updated directives. Emma stayed behind, curled in a blanket by the fire, sketching something on a blank page. Miriam sat in her chair and watched the flames move. In the silence, she opened her phone again. The text still sat there. Darren's attempt to pivot. She clicked archive. Not deleted. Not forgotten. Just stored. Like evidence. Outside, the motion light clicked on. A car drove slowly past the hedge line. Emma looked up. Miriam didn't. Instead, she whispered aloud, as much to herself as to the room. "They mocked the way I sounded." She turned to look at her granddaughter. Her voice, when it came next, was precise, steady. "Now let's see how they respond to what I'm writing." The house was still. That brand of still that only follows certainty, the kind that settles into corners once a line has been drawn in silence and backed by documents. Miriam sat in her study, the glow of the desk lamp casting a warm circle over the oak surface. Her tea had gone cold. She didn't notice. Emma sat on the carpet beside her, cross-legged, her phone tilted toward the desk screen as the video played. The footage wasn't shaky. Emma had filmed it deliberately, as if her instincts had clocked something before her heart did. Miriam watched without blinking. Lisa handing her the paper plate. Darren's voice, cutting and sharp. "Don't serve Herschel, just Drool again." The laugh. Lisa's too wide grin. The sound of ice clinking in someone's glass. Miriam paused the frame. Her own neutral, maybe even unreadable. But the hands told the truth. Holding that plate like it weighed 100 pounds. Like it said everything. Emma shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "I didn't want to record it," she whispered. "But I knew they'd pretend it didn't happen." "You were right to," Miriam said, voice steady. "Play the next one." They went through 3 more clips background conversations. Clinking silverware. A flash of Lisa whispering something with a smirk. The audio wasn't clear, but the body language was undeniable. When it ended, Miriam unplugged the USB and inserted it into her laptop. She clicked, dragged, renamed. Drool. This. MP4. Then she opened her encrypted vault, created a new folder titled Disrespect Documentation, and uploaded it in full. No edits, no filters, no disclaimers. Across town, Cynthia's phone buzzed with a single-line message. Prepare the clause. Use the footage. Back in her own office, Cynthia closed her glass of Cabernet and opened the Radley Chase estate file. She didn't have to ask what clause Miriam meant. Not after the last dinner. Not after the binder. Not after Miriam's eyes had said more in silence than most clients manage in litigation. By the time Miriam closed the laptop, Emma was curled up on the love seat, knees tucked under her, watching her grandmother, not with pity but with something else. Reverence, maybe. I could help, Emma said softly, with the photo albums, digitizing them. If that's okay. Miriam looked up, studied her. To preserve or to stay longer? Emma hesitated. Then, both. Miriam nodded once. Then we'll begin tomorrow. Chronological order. Outside, the porch light buzzed on, the kind of flicker that warned of movement. Paula didn't knock, she never did. She let herself in through the back door, toolbox in hand, side gate locks corroded. I brought a new one, she said, not waiting for permission. And I picked up a motion sensor camera. We're not taking chances. Miriam raised an eyebrow. Planning to install a moat too? If I find one on sale, Paula said, kneeling beside the back door. Absolutely. The drill whirred once. The new lock clicked into place with the finality of a closing vault. As Paula worked, Miriam's phone lit up on the counter. Lisa, it was just a joke. I think you're taking things a little personally. No greeting. No question. Just a pivot in sheep's clothing. Miriam stared at the message for a long moment, then pressed and held it. Selected. Forward. She sent it to Cynthia with one word. Exhibit. She did not reply to Lisa. Emma watched from the table, phone resting in her lap. You're not going to answer? Miriam's smile was thin and deliberate. I'm done explaining jokes to grown adults. Outside, Paula stood, wiped her hands on a dish towel, and stepped inside. That lock won't budge now. No one comes through that gate unless they've earned it. Miriam sipped her now lukewarm tea. Good. Let's keep it that way. Upstairs, a box of photo albums waited in her closet, snapshots of birthday parties no one remembered anymore, camping trips Darren once loved, Lisa's first time holding Emma. They'd begin scanning tomorrow. Not to reminisce, to reclaim. Downstairs, Miriam opened her laptop again. She created a new document. Bold, centered title. Clause Revision. Conditions of Emotional Breach. She didn't write anything under it yet, but the page was open and ready. The envelope arrived by courier. No return address, just Miriam's name in bold block letters and a signature line across the seal. Cynthia opened it on her porch reading glasses low on her nose, legal instincts already bristling. The moment her eyes scanned the header, she set her coffee down without sipping. Petition for Durable Financial Guardianship. Filed by Darren Chase. Allegation. Cognitive decline impeding fiscal judgment. She didn't call. She drove. Miriam was in the kitchen, arranging photographs by year Emma's digitizing project, now in full swing when Cynthia stepped through the door. You're going to want tea, Cynthia said instead of hello. Miriam didn't flinch, just turned the kettle on and reached for her estate binder like it was part of muscle memory. Cynthia laid the court notice on the table between them. Miriam read it once, then poured 2 cups. Chamomile? She asked. Strongest thing I've had all week, Cynthia muttered. They sat. No panic. No raised voices. Miriam simply flipped to her legal clearance recent cognitive assessment, dated and notarized. Her doctor's signature in pen so dark, it bled through the page. Miriam sipped her tea. He's early. I expected this closer to Christmas. Cynthia smirked. He's underestimating you. Again. That Friday, the hearing convened in a modest courtroom with faded sealant on the flagpole, and a judge who looked like she'd seen every kind of family betrayal a dozen times over. Darren arrived in a charcoal suit that fit like he'd borrowed ambition to fill it. Lisa trailed behind, face set in that studied expression of reluctant concern. Emma sat beside Paula, in the second row, arms crossed, eyes sharp, no smile. The judge called the room to order. Darren stood, cleared his throat, and delivered his statement with forced humility. My mother has had trouble managing daily tasks. She often forgets names, repeats herself, and seems confused. We've noticed bills stacking up and questionable digital activity. We're only trying to help. Before she does something irreversible. He let the last word hang like a noose. Cynthia rose. Your Honor, she said calmly, I submit Exhibit A cognitive and neurological evaluation dated 2 weeks ago. Full clearance, no signs of impairment. She handed the folder to the bailiff without ceremony. The judge flipped through it, nodded once. Cynthia continued. Exhibit B. Communication records between Mr. Chase and several third-party financial advisors. My client never authorized these discussions. They appear to be preemptive asset inquiries. Darren shifted. And Exhibit C, Cynthia added, voice tightening just slightly, is a sworn affidavit from Miss Paula Nguyen, longtime neighbor and former licensed nurse, documenting multiple verbal incidents that could reasonably be considered abusive. Paula stood, head high. He called her a burden. On more than one occasion, said she. Should be grateful anyone still remembered she was alive. Gasps stirred. Not from the courtroom, just Emma. Her hand gripped the wooden bench. Lisa tried to whisper something to Darren. He shook his head, jaw clenched. The judge tapped her pen. Mr. Chase, she said, I see no grounds here for the guardianship request. In fact, what I do see raises concerns about your motives. Darren's eyes flared. This is just a misunderstanding. The judge didn't blink. Then it's a very thorough one. We'll reconvene in 30 days, pending additional review. Until then, all accounts remain under Miss Chase's exclusive control. Gavel, tap, adjourned. Outside the courthouse, the air smelled of exhaust and late summer heat. Cynthia slipped her sunglasses on as Darren stormed off without looking back. Lisa hesitated near the steps, waiting perhaps for someone to absolve her. No one did. Inside the car, Miriam sat still for a moment before closing her binder. Emma broke the silence. They really thought you wouldn't fight. Miriam looked at her. No, she said. They thought I couldn't. Behind her sunglasses, Cynthia cracked a grin. They won't make that mistake again. But inside her bag sat a list, and at the top of it, in ink so dark it stained the next page, were 2 underlined names, and a clause still waiting to be signed. The knock came mid-morning timed to feel casual, but with an urgency that gave away its purpose. Miriam peeked through the front window. Lisa stood on the porch in a lemon-yellow blouse, her expression manufactured with surgical precision. Lips pursed, eyes glassy, shoulders drawn just enough to appear breakable. She held a bouquet of peonies, white ones. Miriam opened the door halfway, letting the silence speak first. Hi, Lisa said. Her voice trembled like she'd practiced it. I thought maybe we could talk. Miriam tilted her head. I don't recall asking for flowers. They're not flowers, Lisa rushed. They're peace. Darren's just been overwhelmed. The hearing rattled him. It rattled all of us. Miriam stepped aside. Not an invitation, a test. Lisa entered like someone tiptoeing into a chapel they hadn't believed in for years. The living room was spotless fresh tulips in a crystal vase, binder closed neatly on the coffee table, and Emma curled into the corner of the couch, legs crossed, notebook open on her lap. She didn't say hello. Lisa placed the bouquet down and sat slowly on the edge of the armchair like it might reject her. I know things have gotten tense, she began. But we're still family, Miriam. We all say dumb things, especially when emotions run high. But blood is blood. Miriam crossed to the television, picked up the remote, and turned on the screen. The image was already cued. A clip from the cookout. Lisa laughing. The unmistakable sound of Darren's voice. Don't serve Herschel, just drool again. Lisa's face drained of color. Miriam pressed pause. The screen froze on Lisa, mid-laugh eyes narrowed. Head tilted. Miriam turned. Remind me, which part of this was emotional? Or dumb? Or familial? Lisa opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. It was a joke. You know how Darren gets. No, Miriam said flatly, but I know how I got. She walked to the shelf, pulled down the trust binder, and opened it beside the bouquet Lisa had brought. From the hallway, Paula stepped in, arms crossed. Lisa blinked at her presence. You're still here? Paula didn't answer. She just leaned her shoulder into the doorway like a bouncer at a velvet rope. Cynthia's email had arrived 15 minutes earlier, new trust language, fully executed. Miriam tapped the printed copy with one finger. Emergency authority has been reassigned, she said. Effective immediately. Paula is the only other person with access to the estate or its assets. Lisa blinked fast. Wait, what? Miriam met her gaze. You're here for redemption, Lisa. Or access. Maybe both. But this isn't that kind of house anymore. We're all family here, Lisa said, the desperation fraying her vowels. Miriam's voice didn't rise. Not anymore. On the couch, Emma turned a page in her notebook. Her pen didn't move, but her presence did. Lisa stood. You'd let her? She nodded toward Paula. Override your own blood? Paula pushed off the doorframe. Calm, solid. She didn't override anything. She earned it. Lisa looked around like someone who just realized they were on the wrong stage of the wrong play. She reached for the flowers. Miriam didn't stop her. But before she could leave, Paula stepped forward and opened the door. Let me help you, she said. Her tone was sharp velvet. Lisa paused. Paula leaned in, just enough. She's not alone. And if I see you come back with more than peonies, I'll be across the street with a garden fork. Lisa left without another word. The door shut behind her with a sound that was more final than loud. Emma looked up from the couch. She wanted tears. Miriam walked to the window and watched Lisa cross the lawn in stiff, uneven strides. She got something heavier. Then, calmly, she turned to the binder on the table. She didn't close it. Instead, she reached for a pen and signed the next section. Clause revision. Immediate beneficiary reassessment triggered. And outside, for the first time in weeks, the breeze smelled like something clean. The shovel sank with a soft thunk into the soil, moist and dark from last night's drizzle. Miriam adjusted her grip and pressed her foot down on the edge, splitting the earth with a quiet, deliberate strength. Beside her, Emma knelt on a gardening cushion. Tulip bulbs lined up like little soldiers waiting for deployment. The sun hadn't fully claimed the sky yet. The backyard shimmered with morning dew and the low rustle of the cedar tree Paula had helped prune last spring. Birds chirped. No music, no cars, just the sound of reclamation. This bed used to be all marigolds, Miriam said, not looking up. Emma glanced sideways. What happened to them? Darren tore them up, trying to make room for a kiddie pool. Said the petals made the water look dirty. Emma blinked. I'm sorry. Miriam just handed her another bulb. They didn't come back the next year. They worked in rhythm, Miriam digging, Emma placing and patting the soil flat. They weren't trying to make something pretty. They were planting something permanent. 3 bulbs in, Emma's trowel hit something hard. She paused, knelt deeper, and pulled it out with both hands. A photo, curled at the edges and slightly water-stained, but unmistakable. Darren, maybe 8 years old, grinning with mud streaked across his cheeks, holding a toy dump truck half buried in the same patch of dirt they now stood over. Emma held it up. Miriam stared at it. Her lips didn't move, but her eyes did. She took the photo gently, turned it over once, then walked without a word to the fire pit. The match hissed against the striker. A small flame danced to life in her palm, then kissed the corner of the photo. It curled inward as it burned, Darren's face folding into smoke and ash. Emma didn't ask why. Because some things don't need narration. By afternoon, Paula arrived with 2 things, a bag of oatmeal cookies and a beginner's checkbook register. I told her you're going to inherit responsibility, not just the house, she said, sliding into the dining room chair and snapping the book open. Start with monthly fixed costs. Then we'll get to variable nonsense like takeout. Emma laughed. You make money sound like an exam. Good. It should be. They worked at the table while Miriam filled out a single, significant formone that Cynthia had couriered over that morning. Property deed transfer. Primary successor. Emma Chase. She signed it in ink so firm it didn't just confirm ownership, it declared intent. By the time the sun started to dip, Emma had written her first mock budget, and Paula had made her recite it like scripture. Electric, water, taxes, emergency fund. Repeat. Emma repeated it, smiling. Outside, a slow crunch of tires rolled over the gravel alley. Emma looked up. Through the side fence slats, Darren's SUV crept by, windows tinted, engine a low growl, pace unnatural, watching. His window lowered halfway as he passed the gate. Miriam didn't get up from her chair inside. But Emma stood, walked calmly to the garden's edge, and met his gaze. She didn't wave. She didn't look away. Darren blinked first, rolled the window back up, and drove off. Emma turned and walked back inside. At the dining room table, Paula said, "You didn't flinch. I'm not the one who should." Miriam stood and moved to the window, the fading light casting long shadows across the tulip bed. She crossed her arms not defensively, but with completion, like someone standing over a blueprint that had finally been poured into concrete. Then she spoke, soft, clear, cold as a ledger. "Every time he passes this house now," she said, "he'll see what's growing where he used to matter." Emma reached for the cookie tin, eyes still on the garden. "And he'll know he can't dig it up this time." From the kitchen, the oven timer dinged, but nobody moved. Because some legacies don't bake, they bloom. The knock came at 9:06 a.m., sharp and expectant. Miriam didn't rush to answer. She took one last sip of her tea, adjusted the crease in her blouse, and waited 3 more seconds before opening the door. Darren stood with a forced smile and 2 flattened cardboard boxes tucked under one arm. Lisa hovered behind him, arms full of bubble wrap and that brittle expression she wore like perfume pleasant from afar, acrid up close. "We thought we'd help you downsize," Darren said, stepping forward like someone expecting gratitude for the intrusion. Miriam held the door open with one hand and gestured toward the parlor. "Already done, but take a seat," Darren faltered. "Oh, really?" Lisa's smile twitched. "We figured there might be things you'd need help sorting through. Paperwork, antiques, storage stuff." Miriam moved ahead without answering, her steps steady across the hardwood. In the center of the parlor sat a small round table. On it, a single manila folder closed, pristine and waiting. They sat Darren on the edge of the settee like it might bite, Lisa on the ottoman with her legs crossed tightly at the ankle. The boxes remained by the door, untouched. Miriam sat across from them and slid the folder forward. "Estate changes," she said, voice smooth and unhurried. "Please review." Lisa reached for it first. Darren leaned over to see. The silence that followed was jagged. Lisa flipped past the cover page. Her jaw stiffened. Darren's forehead creased. "This isn't," Lisa began. "It's notarized," Miriam said. "Executed and filed." Darren's voice rose just a half step. "You removed us?" Miriam didn't blink. "I restructured. Beneficiaries, trustees, access privileges. You're neither essential nor eligible." Lisa looked up, face flushing. "We were just trying to help." "With cardboard?" Emma appeared then barefoot in the hallway, arms folded. She leaned against the doorframe, saying nothing. Lisa saw her and turned desperate. "Emma, honey, we thought your grandmother might need some guidance." Emma's eyes didn't move. "She's the one guiding." Lisa's smile broke. "You don't understand how complicated this is." "Actually," Emma said, "I understand more than you think." Behind the curtain near the side window, Paula stood with her phone raised recording. No flash, no sound, just quiet preservation. Darren stood abruptly. "You can't just erase us." "You're not being erased," Miriam replied. "You're being accurately recorded." Lisa's voice cracked. "This isn't how family works." "This is exactly how legacy works," Miriam said. "It's not a gift, it's a decision." She reached for the folder again, flipped to the final page, and tapped a single line with her index finger. "All previous designations are revoked as of filing date. No successor status shall apply to Darren or Lisa Chase in perpetuity." Lisa looked physically ill. Darren opened his mouth, then closed it again. His usual arrogance was there, but misfiring like a weapon without bullets. Miriam stood. "Leave the boxes. You'll need them." Neither moved. Emma stepped forward. "I'll show you out." Paula stepped from behind the curtain, still recording. Lisa stared at her. "You were hiding?" "I was documenting," Paula said coolly. "There's a difference." They left wordlessly, boxes in hand, silence heavier than any dialogue they could have thrown back. At the edge of the porch, Darren turned around once. "You think you've won something?" Miriam stepped forward just far enough to be seen behind the screen door. "I didn't win," she said. "I remembered." And then, as Darren and Lisa stepped into their car and pulled away, Emma reached into her pocket and handed Miriam the spare key. Miriam took it, then walked to the parlor table and dropped it into the envelope marked obsolete. On the floor by the front door, one sheet of bubble wrap had slipped from Lisa's bundle. Emma bent down, picked it up, and popped each bubble slowly, deliberately. Behind her, Miriam opened a drawer and pulled out a new envelope. On the label, "Final declarations, execution pending." She didn't seal it yet, but her thumb rested on the flap, and her pen was already uncapped. The knock was quiet, measured, almost shy. Miriam glanced at the clock. 10:52 p.m. She opened the door without asking who it was. Emma stood on the porch in a hoodie too thin for the weather, a duffel bag slung across her shoulder and exhaustion threaded through her expression like seams barely holding. "I can't watch them treat you like this anymore," she said. "I won't." Miriam stepped back without a word. The porch light buzzed softly overhead as Emma crossed the threshold. In the kitchen, Miriam turned on the stove, filled the kettle. She didn't ask questions. She simply set a second cup on the breakfast table and opened the cupboard where the good mugs lived. Emma sat, the duffel bag thumping softly to the floor beside her. "Did they see you leave?" Miriam asked. "I told them I was going to Jen's for the weekend." She hesitated. "I might just not go back." Miriam poured 2 cups of chamomile and slid one across the table. "Then you'll need drawer space and a schedule." A pause. Then a smile passed between theme and earned, not inherited. By morning, Cynthia had already replied. "Initiating full legal transfer of estate responsibility. Drafting power of attorney. Beneficiary file updated with today's date. Need your signature and a witness. I'll be by tonight." Paula arrived around noon, arms full of linens and a mischievous glint in her eye. "Brought the soft sheets," she said. "And I put fresh batteries in the flashlight in the guest room drawer just in case. Looks like you've got a new roommate." Emma helped fold the fitted sheet, the corners slipping like secrets they were finally letting go. Later, Miriam showed her how to enter the household ledger, fixed costs, charitable disbursements, maintenance contracts. She taught her which drawer held the important keys and which one held the less important ones. Though you'll learn fast, they're often the same. Meanwhile, Lisa's texts pinged one after another on Emma's phone. "Emma. Mom. You okay? Mom. Where are you? Mom. Did she put you up to this? Mom. Please come home. This is ridiculous. Mom. You don't understand what she's doing." Emma stared at the screen for a long time, then held down the thread. Block. Done. Cynthia arrived just before sunset, legal folder in hand, sleeves rolled, eyes focused. The documents were printed on thick paper. No smudging, no ambiguity. "Read every word," she said to Emma. "But just know this isn't temporary. You're not just living here. You're entrusted." Emma read slowly, then signed. Miriam watched her hand move across the page. "Executor," she said softly. "Not just of assets, of legacy." Emma looked up. "I won't disappoint you. You haven't yet." Cynthia stamped the file, tucked it back into her satchel, and poured herself half a cup of tea. The house felt heavier, somehow settled, but not stagnant. At 9:04 p.m., Emma opened her laptop and posted a single photo. Miriam in the garden, half-turned, tulips rising in soft arcs behind her. Caption: "Living with someone who remembers what real roots look like." Comments flooded in. Likes ticked upward. And somewhere across town, Lisa saw it. Darren saw it. Miriam didn't need to read a word. That night, as Emma turned off her bedside lamp and curled beneath the soft linens Paula had brought, Miriam placed the final signed document into her vault folder. She shut the drawer, locked it, and then sat on the edge of her bed, hands folded in her lap. The house creaked once the way old houses do when they're breathing differently for the first time in years. She didn't smile. She simply whispered to the dark, "Executor." And on the nightstand beside her, the estate binder rested, with Emma's name on every page that mattered, and no space left for revision. The barrage started quietly, like a tap dripping in another room. A voicemail from Darren, clipped, rehearsed, attempting charm. Then another, angrier. Then a string of emails, subject lines escalating from "Can we talk?" to "This isn't over." By breakfast, Lisa had joined in. Miriam's phone buzzed every 5 minutes with some new attempt at reconnection. A forwarded video of Emma's high school play. A blurry picture of the old family dog. A message that simply read, We can fix this. Cynthia didn't flinch when Miriam sent over the screenshots. She just opened a new folder on her encrypted drive and labeled it Harassment Chase. By noon, she had compiled 67 entries. It's important you don't respond, she told them via video call. Silence is documentation's best friend. Miriam nodded. I've learned that twice now. That afternoon, a knock came slow and deliberate. Emma checked the side camera. It's Reverend Moore, she said, confused. From Dad's old church. Miriam exhaled through her nose. Let him in, but no tea. He stood in the foyer like a man used to being welcomed and slightly unsure what to do without it. His silver hair was combed flat, and he held his Bible against his chest like a shield. I thought I should come, he said carefully. There's talk. Darren says you've been making rash decisions, that perhaps your faculties. Miriam raised one hand. She walked to the kitchen drawer and retrieved a sealed envelope. Inside, the notarized cognitive clearance, a flash drive labeled Drool, this, MP4. A printout of the estate restructure, countersigned and witnessed, she handed it to him. Start there. He looked uncertain. Miriam, we're only concerned. You're only repeating, she said calmly. And I've already heard it. Reverend Moore took the envelope, awkward and unsure. He turned to Emma. You're living here now? Yes, Emma said without hesitation. And working. His gaze lingered one beat too long. Then he nodded and left without another word. Outside, Paula was on a ladder, tightening screws on a brand new deadbolt she'd picked up that morning. I figured the front had seen enough, she said, holding out the second key. This one's a double lock. Old school, like us. Emma pocketed the key. Thanks, Paula. Inside, the house felt tighter. Not with fear, but with fortification. That night, Emma opened her phone and tapped out a post. A photo of Miriam at the breakfast table, reading the Chronicle, glasses low on her nose, tea beside her, pen tucked behind her ear. Caption: Some legacies are loud, some are built, one quiet act of defiance at a time. Number rooted. The comments began instantly. Your grandmother is a legend. I hope I have half her spine when I'm her age. Tell her she's not alone. Ever. The likes passed 200, then 5. Miriam didn't ask what Emma was smiling about. She didn't need to. Instead, she sat at her desk and pulled out her file of loose ends. At the very bottom, a folded list titled Contingencies. She crossed off line item 2, Prove Capacity. Above it, still uncrossed, Force them to show who they are. Outside, another car slowed in front of the house windows tinted, watching. Paula saw it from her porch, hand tightening on the watering can she hadn't yet used. Emma didn't bother looking up this time. Miriam reached for the binder, but didn't open it. She didn't need to anymore, because the next clause wasn't for her to read. It was for them. And they were running out of time. The waiting room smelled like lemon floor polish and optimism sheep, persistent and entirely artificial. Emma sat in a plastic chair, Miriam's scarf folded carefully in her lap. The scarf still held the scent of her grandmother's tea, chamomile and something faintly floral. She didn't scroll her phone. She didn't fidget. She just waited. Inside the evaluation room, Miriam sat perfectly upright across from Dr. Ransley, a clinical psychologist with pale blue glasses and a voice so even it could probably put infants to sleep. Miriam didn't flinch at the battery of questions. Name and birth date? Full address? Can you spell world backwards? Serial subtraction by sevens from 100? Her responses were crisp, clear, emotionless but not detached. She wasn't trying to prove brilliance. She was proving precision. Dr. Ransley flipped a clipboard page. Do you know why you're here today? Miriam looked at her with that same measured calm she used to diffuse faculty disputes in the school board days. Yes, because people who benefit from my silence keep confusing it for decline. Dr. Ransley blinked once, then nodded. I'd like to ask some executive function questions, she said. Ask away. They went on questions of planning, memory, logic, then abstract reasoning. Imagine a burning house, the psychologist said. You can only save one thing. What do you take? Miriam didn't hesitate. The person who keeps track of what mattered. And what if the house is empty? Then the ledger. At exactly 51 minutes, the psychologist clicked her pen closed and offered Miriam a glass of water. "You're very self-possessed," she said. "I have to be." "No signs of impairment," Dr. Ransley said. "Frankly, you outscored most of my staff on reflex sequencing." Miriam took the glass, didn't drink. "Will you put that in writing?" "I already have." In the waiting room, Emma stood as soon as she saw the door open. Miriam handed her the scarf first, then the envelope. Emma read the label, "Cognitive Evaluation, Dr. S. Ransley, Ph.D., Full Capacity Verified." "You didn't have to do this," Emma said. "I did," Miriam replied. "Not for them, for the paper trail." Back at home, the late light of afternoon filtered through the blinds in slatted gold. Cynthia sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open, tapping notes into the client portal. "Medical POA has been updated," she said, not looking up. "Emma's now listed on all HIPAA and estate-linked care decisions. You're legally unassailable." Miriam nodded. "Until they invent a new form of insult." Cynthia raised a brow. "They already did." Lisa's Facebook post dropped just after sunset. Public, no privacy filter, tagged to no one but visible to all. Some people know how to manipulate tests, but time always tells. No names, just implication, polished to gleam like good manners. Emma found it first. She tilted her phone toward Miriam. "You want me to report it?" Miriam didn't even look. Number let her leave fingerprints. Paula walked in then, a pie carrier under her arm. "You've passed another test?" "Apparently, I manipulated my way into a perfect score," Miriam deadpanned. Paula grinned. "Damn impressive. Teach me how." Cynthia closed her laptop and stood. "Just keep breathing and not being a sociopath. That seems to be the trick." The house filled with the scent of cinnamon and warm butter. Outside, cicadas chirped. Emma opened her laptop and began uploading scanned documents into the encrypted cloud folder. As she typed, she murmured the file path under her breath. Assets, POA, Guardian Proof, Evaluation Final, Party F. She paused, then smiled. "Sorted," she said. Miriam leaned back in her chair, the scarf now tied loosely around her neck. She stared at the shadows crawling up the wall as dusk settled in. "They wanted confusion," she said softly. "They got documentation," Emma replied. Outside, a car rolled by. Inside, Miriam reached for the estate binder again. She flipped to Clause 14. "In cases of provable malice, posthumous challenges shall be void." And for the first time that week, she used her red pen. The clink of porcelain echoed beneath the cedar branches as Miriam poured a second round of Earl Grey into glass-thin teacups rimmed in faded gold. The backyard was dressed in sunlight and lavender breeze, the kind of afternoon that made cruelty feel very far away. A linen runner stretched across the garden table. On it, shortbread cookies, lemon tarts, a tiered stand of cucumber sandwiches, and 4 hand-folded napkins shaped into roses. Paula had insisted on cloth napkins. No point building an empire if you're using paper. Emma lounged beside the bird bath, one leg tucked beneath her, sketchbook open but untouched. Cynthia sat back in a wicker chair. Her blazer hung behind her like a flag of temporary truce. Miriam, centered at the table, wore her navy cardigan and her old brooch with the chipped stone. It caught the sun like it still had something to prove. They laughed over a memory Paula shared some PTA bake sale where Darren had licked every cupcake to mark them before judging began. "I should have known then," Cynthia said dryly, sipping her tea. "Like a stray dog guarding trash," Miriam murmured, deadpan. A breeze rustled the edge of the tablecloth. Emma reached into her sketchbook and pulled out an old photo she'd found while archiving the attic boxes. It was crinkled and sun-stained, edges curling like paper trying to forget itself. In it, Miriam, younger, seated on the porch swing with both arms wrapped around a grinning Darren. Lisa stood in the background, arms crossed, eyes already calculating. Miriam stared at it. Paula didn't ask. She simply stood, walked to the fire pit, and held out her hand. Miriam passed the photo without a word. Emma followed with the matches. It curled slow flames, licking the edges, the faces folding into ash. No speech, no song. Just smoke carrying a history that no longer earned its frame. They'd barely returned to their seats when the sound of polished shoes on gravel interrupted the breeze. A man in a tailored vest and weathered briefcase walked across the lawn as if he were entering a closing negotiation, not someone's garden. "Miss Chase?" he asked, voice clipped, formal. "I'm Michael Talbert. I represent the probate mediator assigned to review an external negotiation offer. I was contacted by Darren Chase's counsel." Miriam didn't stand. She simply raised one brow and placed her teacup gently back in its saucer. "I see," she said. "How unfortunate for him." Mr. Talbert cleared his throat. "There's been concern, perhaps misunderstanding, regarding the changes to your estate and beneficiary assignments. My client is offering to resolve this amicably." Cynthia reached for a cookie. "By amicably, I assume he means quietly." "I mean professionally," Mr. Talbert said, adjusting his tie. Miriam slid her chair back, deliberate, measured. "All negotiations," she said, "end here." She reached beneath the table and retrieved a crisp envelope. "And just to clarify, you've been served." Talbert froze. "I'm sorry?" Paula stood and handed him a sealed affidavit signed, notarized, and complete. "In case the lawyer didn't warn you," she said. "That's a sworn statement, confirming multiple instances of verbal elder abuse by Darren Chase, over 5 years. I kept the journals, I kept the dates." Talbert accepted the envelope with fingers just shy of shaking. Emma stood next, quietly. No flourish. She reached into the stack of estate files resting on the garden bench and pulled one document free. The will. She slid it across the table like she was passing a bill at brunch. "Current. Executed. All witnesses present," she said. "Emma Chase, sole executor. Miriam Chase, confirmed competent." Talbert opened the cover page and scanned for loopholes. There were none. Cynthia smiled. "Try to find a signature that isn't airtight. I triple-checked the ink drying times." Miriam returned to her seat, lifted her teacup again, and took a sip. "Please let Mr. Chase know," she said, voice gentle as a hymn. "The garden is closed, and so is the conversation." Talbert gathered the envelope, nodded, and walked out without another word. The breeze returned. Emma leaned toward her grandmother. "Did that feel good?" "No," Miriam said, "but it felt clean." At the edge of the yard, the final curls of smoke from the photo flickered up into the trees, vanishing like everything else they'd finally stopped carrying. And inside Miriam's teacup, the reflection of the sky held no clouds, only blue. The envelope came with no return address and no warning, but Miriam recognized the stationery immediately: thick, cream stock with a charcoal watermark embossed just beneath the fold. Cynthia's choice. Clean. Indisputable. Inside, the activation letter. Clause 17B, subsection 3, irrevocable disinheritance upon confirmed disrespect. It had been filed 3 years ago, witnessed, notarized, sealed, quiet at the time, like all the most powerful weapons are. Now, it had a timestamp and teeth. She handed it to Paula first. "I want your eyes on it," Miriam said. Paula didn't rush. She adjusted her reading glasses and read each line aloud, her voice steady. "Due to recorded incidents and verified witness testimony, Clause 17B has been triggered in full. Darren Chase and Lisa Chase are henceforth excluded from all financial, property, and fiduciary considerations within the Chase estate, now and in perpetuity." She paused. "In perpetuity? That's a hell of a lock." Miriam only nodded. It was never about revenge, just clarity. Across town, Mr. Talbert stood in front of Darren and Lisa in a stuffy downtown office, the same folder open before them. "You can't be serious," Darren hissed. "She can't do this." "She already did," Talbert replied flatly. "And let me be clear, if you attempt to contest this, you expose yourself to breach penalties." Her clause was filed under protected testator privilege. Any challenge now would be interpreted as retaliatory harassment. "You'd owe damages." Lisa's voice cracked. "We're her family." Talbert shut the folder. "You were." Back at Miriam's, Emma leaned against the kitchen counter as Cynthia entered, holding another set of documents, these warmer in tone, but just as final. "She asked me to draft it months ago," Cynthia said. "We just never knew when the day would come." Emma took the top page and read aloud. 30% of the Chase estate shall be donated to the Pacific Northwest Speech and Dignity Fund, providing scholarships for individuals recovering from neurological speech trauma. She remembered what they mocked, Emma whispered. She remembered everything, Cynthia said. The remaining estate had been divided cleanly, 65% to Emma, 5% into a protected trust for Emma's future children, 0% to Darren or Lisa. There were no mistakes, no legal soft spots, no room for re-entry. Paula poured 2 cups of coffee and passed one to Miriam without asking. You didn't just close the door, she said. You rebuilt the house, and you barred them from the blueprint. Outside, the tulips swayed under a soft breeze, unaware or maybe entirely aware of the finality now blooming in the soil beneath them. At 4:06 p.m., the legal server arrived. He knocked twice, then delivered a final packet to a beige townhome on Clarendon Street. Darren opened the door in a faded hoodie, eyes bloodshot, jaw tight. The server held out the envelope. This is a formal inheritance exclusion. You are not to respond. You are to acknowledge receipt only. Darren refused to take it at first. Lisa stepped past him and took the papers herself, her hands shaking. When they opened the final page, bold text confirmed it. You are not welcome in her memory. You will not be present in her legacy. No signature required. Back at Miriam's, the 4 women sat at the dining table as golden hour spilled through the windows. Emma folded the finalized binder shut and slid it into the fireproof safe. I feel like we just buried something, she said. We did, Paula replied. And then we planted something on top. Miriam didn't speak. She simply reached for a pen and crossed one final line off her list. Line item number 4. Complete the rebuild. Only one line remained. And tomorrow, it would come with a celebration. Not for revenge, for survival. But tonight, they sat in silent CT, cooling, light fading, justice anchored. And the last clause, unbreakable, ready. The smoke curled upward from the grill, thick with mesquite and memory, as Paula flipped the marinated chicken thighs like a woman with dominion over fire. Her apron read, Boss of the Backyard, a gift from Miriam years ago, and today finally it fit. The yard was alive. Laughter arced between lawn chairs. Folding tables were draped in gingham cloths and stacked with bowls of pasta salad, deviled eggs, and Cynthia's just adult enough sangria. A Bluetooth speaker hummed Motown standards near the tulip bed, now standing tall like a new era in bloom. Emma stood at the patio table, frosting a 2-tier lemon cake with deliberate strokes. She wore jeans smudged with powdered sugar and a shirt that read, Inheritor of Chaos and Real Estate. Miriam had chuckled when she saw it. Now she just nodded in approval. The backyard, once silent with surveillance, now buzzed with belonging. Neighbors filtered in slowly. Mrs. Klein from across the street brought a bouquet of sunflowers in a mason jar. John from next door delivered fresh cornbread in a cast-iron skillet still hot from the oven. The newest couple from 2 doors down brought wine and a framed photo wrapped in tissue. I found this in an old Rotary Club box, the man explained, handing it gently to Miriam. You should have it. Miriam peeled back the paper. It was her, 20 years ago, standing at a school fundraiser podium in a navy blazer, face lit by afternoon sun, hand raised mid-speech. Her smile was open, earnest, unapologetically alive. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Miriam set the frame on the table beside the lemonade pitcher and said simply, I remember her. Emma leaned over. I see her every morning. Later, as dusk crept toward the hedges, Miriam pulled Emma aside. They sat together on the porch, swing the very one where, decades ago, family photos had once staged illusions. Miriam reached into her pocket. Not a velvet box, not a ceremony, just a gold ring worn at the edges. Shaped by decades of dishes and cold winters and quiet compromise, she placed it in Emma's palm. For your story, she said. Not theirs. Emma looked down at the ring. It wasn't flashy, but it was weighty, solid, etched with small scuffs that no jeweler could polish out. For your story, Miriam repeated, softer now. Start it however you want. Just don't let it be borrowed. Emma swallowed, nodded, and didn't cry. Back near the grill, Paula tossed another batch of corn on the flames. Cynthia, half glass in hand, was trading courtroom horror stories with two retirees who'd once coached Miriam's PTA fundraisers. The air smelled like cedar smoke, garlic, and the kind of joy that doesn't need to be photographed. Then the engine sound, a low, crawling hum. The air shifted just slightly. Lisa's SUV rolled past the fence line. Slow, windows up, no music, no honk, just a lingering presence, coasting like a ghost over ground it used to claim. She didn't stop. She didn't wave. Inside the yard, no one acknowledged her. Not Paula. Not Cynthia. Not Miriam. Only Emma noticed, and she turned her back to the fence as she placed the cake on the center table. She lit a single candle in the shape of a tulip. Miriam walked over and blew it out. No wishes. No nostalgia. Just finality wrapped in frosting. Behind them, laughter rose again, this time louder. Braver. It filled the corners of the yard where cruelty had once hidden in polite smiles and plastic utensils. Now there was cutlery. Real plates. Real people. And real roots. Miriam stood still for a long moment, watching the scene unfold like something earned, not given. Then she said, not to anyone in particular, "This is the only cookout I'll remember." The wind shifted. The smoke lifted, and somewhere beyond the hedge line, a vehicle drove off empty. The night had quieted, but the warmth lingered. Crickets took over where laughter had left off, and the last of the citronella candles flickered around the porch rail. Miriam sat on the swing, one leg draped over the other, a half-eaten slice of lemon cake on a porcelain plate beside her, the same kind from her wedding, the same pattern, the same weight. Emma joined her, bare feet tucked under her, arms loosely folded as she leaned back and looked up at the sky. It was black velvet clear. No clouds, just constellations and consequences. "Still the best cake I've ever made," she said. Miriam smiled without looking. "Still the cleanest ending I've ever had." Inside, the last dishes were soaking. The chairs folded, the tablecloths in the laundry bin. The home no longer just a battleground was once again a house. Emma's phone buzzed once in her pocket. She ignored it, but Miriam's did not. The mail slot clicked open from the front hallway. A soft thump. Emma stood to check it, returned a minute later, envelope in hand. Her face was unreadable, just still. "No return address," she said. But the handwriting was unmistakable. "Darren." Emma held it like it might catch flame on its own. Miriam took it with 2 fingers, looked at it once, then stood without a word. She walked into the living room, turned the brass dial on the old fireplace, and ignited the gas flame with one flick of the switch. She didn't read the letter. She didn't open it. She placed it directly onto the log grate, pressed it flat with the fire poker, and watched it burn. It curled without protest. The corners flamed, the ink vanished into smoke, and the only thing that remained was a faint scent of artificial cologne and too late regret. Emma watched quietly. Then Miriam turned and walked back to the porch. She carried with her a folder-edged leather, soft at the corners, weighty like a final chapter. "This is everything," she said, handing it to Emma. "The house, the trust, the plans, the backup plans. It's all in your name now." Emma looked down at it, and for a moment, her hands shook not from fear, but from gravity. "You're sure?" she whispered. "I'm sure I don't need to carry it anymore," Miriam said. From inside the house, a knock came not at the door, but a knock made by familiarity. Paula stepped in through the kitchen, 2 wine glasses in hand, her boots tracking faint dust from the garden. Behind her, Cynthia followed, holding a bottle already half gone. "To dignified exits and sharper comebacks," Cynthia said, raising her glass. Paula clinked her own. "To chosen daughters and permanent locks." They all drank. Emma sipped slowly. Miriam didn't. She just looked at the folder now resting in her granddaughter's lap. "You didn't just win," Paula said, settling into the old rocking chair. "You ended the cycle." "No," Miriam replied, a rare glint in her eye. "I just refused to carry it forward." The fire dimmed inside the house, the last flame curling around what remained of Darren's final plea. Cynthia pulled out her phone and opened a new file labeled "Closed Matters Chase." Emma reached out and laced her fingers with her grandmother's. Outside, the night settled deep. No cars idled, no shadows lingered. No more waiting for the next shoe to drop. Because it had. And she'd thrown it herself. Miriam stood once more, stretched, and picked up her empty cake plate. She looked at the icing smear, then set it in the sink for morning. On her way back to bed, she turned to Emma one last time. "Let them remember," she said. "Let them choke on the silence." Emma nodded. "They will." Then Miriam paused at the hallway light switch, her voice steady. Final. Not bitter, just finished. They served mockery. I served consequence, elegantly plated and final.